So thank you so much, Laura, and everyone for such a warm welcome. As Robert and Charmaine mentioned, it's Reconciliation Week, so I wanted to start with this slide today. And I wasn't aware that we're also on the land of the Uwyd and Balon people, as well as Whadjuk, so it's kind of the intersection of three language groups. But yes, Sheila, Jackie and I travelled up today from Mandragorat, which is the Noongar name for Mandra. Anybody want to let me know what it means? Anybody have any idea what Mandragorat means? The meaning of the, yes?
I think it's something to do with water or meeting place.
Meeting place, yes, very good. It actually means meeting place of the heart, so it's such a beautiful name. And we really feel that that's what it's like as well, in terms of having a heart, sort of a village heart to it. So this photograph was taken yesterday. There's 4 young people in there in the picture who are our 4 Indigenous trainees in various sections of the organisation, and they got together to design a little project which was a sea of hands. So staff members were encouraged to pluck some hands and place them in the form of the Aboriginal flag, and also reflect a little bit on what reconciliation means to each and every one of us. So it was really a nice little event for Reconciliation Week. So I'm just going to speak a little bit about, I guess, the highlights and lessons from where the City of Mandurah responded to the COVID lockdown and since. And then my friend and community champion Sheila is going to chat to you a little bit about a specific community-led initiative which came from COVID, but it was kind of given a bit of impetus by COVID. And that embodies community connection as well as kindness and compassion, very much so. So if you will, cast your minds back to 1 year ago, things were very different, and a time of great uncertainty and possibly fear as well in many people. But this little quote caught my eye at the time and offered a bit of hope and direction from Jim Deers. I don't know if people are familiar with Jim Deers. Written a great book called Neighbour Power, The Power of Neighbours and People at the Grassroots Level. This crisis calls for clean hands and warm hearts. Just nice. So, Mandurah, or Mandragorat. So, my role is as a community development officer, but in a particular place. I'm in the north of Mandurah. I've got a pointer thing, haven't I think? In Lakelands and a few other suburbs. My colleague Tom is in the central area. And then Pippa Gordon, our other colleague, has an area which is probably 10 times bigger than ours to cover. It does an amazing job. Because it includes a rural, sort of semi-rural area to the south. As you can see, we're surrounded by water, so it's a fantastic place to live. So I brought my family here in 2005 as young little kids, and they're now 25 and 22, so they've now flown the nest. So our way of working is mainly to seek out people and find out what they're interested in and passionate about, and also get to know lots of community groups and what the community has, the assets basically. So we do a lot of asset mapping, and then we try and connect those assets together and provide opportunities for those assets to be powerful and create some great community activity. So the City of Mandurah, we restructured our organisation virtually overnight last year, around March time. So we had this new hierarchy. We had a vulnerable communities working group, and underneath that we all got reorganised into different teams. So, for example, I was working with people from libraries, youth development, seniors, and some of the communication team as well. I was working in the youth and culturally diverse community group, and also the social connection and support group. And that was awesome. That was great in terms of us learning about each other's skills as well. And this is a sort of structure that we can roll out again should we be hit by a lockdown. Obviously, we've got quite a well-resourced community through the rates, etc. When I first came to Mandurah in 2005, there was 45,000 people, and now there's over 90, so it's nearly doubled, more than doubled in size since then. So, and we were very closely in contact with the group of 6 is the police, the main agencies like communities, housing, also the justice system, etc. Housing, also people who support people with emergency relief and that sort of thing as well. Emergency management, of course. And what happened was we were encouraged to submit business cases for particular projects that would support the community and or the community sector to better support the community. So we had 26 projects, and of those, about 13 have continued on beyond that, which is great. And we also restructured our grants program so that we went from a pool of $38,000 to $200,000. And the maximum people could apply for went from $2,000 to $5,000. That's for not-for-profit groups to apply for. And the criteria were modified so that we support increased demand from our most vulnerable communities, build the capacity of community organisations and residents groups, or celebrate and encourage cultural diversity and inclusion. So these are the individual teams and the cohorts that they support. So we have support for people with disability, over 65s, volunteers, social inclusion generally, families, financial stress, or people struggling financially, recently unemployed, family and domestic violence. And the PSNTV is a project called Peel Says No to Violence, which is a sort of separate initiative. And then obviously the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander community, people from different cultural backgrounds, and LGBTIQA+. And digital communities was looking at how we could put all our programs and initiatives and connections online with the support of our communications team. This is one of the projects, the initial projects, so a very important one too. So the Senior Centre, Danju Cardigan Maya, meaning wise people, place of learning. So we actually named 4 of our civic buildings, given them Banjarra Noongar names, which I'm very proud of the city. So it became a holding station for food because of the lack of space at Food Bank and for Second Bite. It's like a transfer station, so people could come in and get food, or we would supply food to certain groups out in the community to distribute. Some Aboriginal elders and some of the groups, Aboriginal sports groups came in and took food out to their families, etc. So other things we did. So information channels. So previously, all the city's Facebook pages and things like that were very much all about spruiking what we do as a city, the City of Mandurah, the actual organisation, rather than what the community does. So what we found is, by opening them up to public membership, people in the community or community groups could actually connect and also let people know what was going on. So opening up our channels, a bit like Adam said about opening the door a bit further, was a really important thing. And what's great is this has stayed on. So for example, the seniors Facebook group has gone from 140 people on it to now over 2,000, I think, on that group. So a way of staying in touch. We have a Facebook page called Inclusive Mandurah as well, which is open again and supports people from all diverse and different backgrounds. The Wayfarers, of course, we're in partnership a bit with Inclusion Solutions on the wonderful Wayfarers project as well. And one thing we learned was it's all right putting everything online, but what about if you haven't got a computer or you haven't got home internet or you can't afford a smartphone? So there's a thing called digital exclusion. So people are disadvantaged because of the fact they don't have access to devices that can show them the digital information. And it's more prominent than you think. So I think the average in Mandurah is something like 20% of the population don't have access to digital information. And it's even worse in the more socially disadvantaged communities. So that, as high as 50%, can you believe, in some areas. So how did we address this? Well, what we did, we put some of our communications onto large signs in the local shopping centres. So the photographs in the middle are, this is Silver Sands Shopping Centre, and it's double-sided, so even if the shopping centre is closed, you can see the information in the bottom picture there. So we had the standard COVID health information on the right-hand side there, and then on the left is a list of all the City of Mandurah, or services that work within the City of Mandurah, and phone numbers for them. And we found this was, we did a little survey, and I think more than 80% really appreciated, and they said that they didn't have access to devices, or they did but their friends didn't, and they would tell their friends the phone numbers, etc., to ring. Another thing actually, so I'll just go back, another thing is a disproportionate number of Aboriginal families were without home internet and devices as well. And so we used some of the Reconciliation Action Plan funding. It was redirected to what we called the Aboriginal Education Fund. So Aboriginal students could purchase equipment like laptops and iPads and make sure they were still able to do the study needed from home as part of their school curriculum. We managed to help, I think, 14 families with a $350 voucher towards the purchase of the equipment, and this was really well received by the community. So other community resources, many agencies obviously, as you know, lost the staff, or staff were temporarily stood down. So the city, through officers like Fiona Allen, who's pictured here, our Access and Inclusion Community Development Officer, helped the network stay in contact and collaborate to address many gaps identified. And specific info on a range of was provided, a range of accessible formats to the community. And this is through the Mandurah Kavanagh Rockingham Access and Inclusion Network. We produce various directories as well of local network groups and contacts for people. Nidjala Wangamaya, our local Aboriginal Health Centre, and the city also produced culturally appropriate and easy to understand COVID health messaging for Aboriginal community and elders and families. And also we held NAIDOC in November. I think some other places did as well, which was a real success. So we didn't forget about it. We made sure it was still a very important part of the community calendar. School resources as well, and mental health resources were produced by the city. We realised that we've got obviously a big machine that can churn out lots of booklets and information, so why not use it and fill that gap to make sure everybody's aware of the services they can access, and also some of the community organisations they can connect with, etc. We've held lots of skills building workshops, initially online, and then blended, some face-to-face, some online, and then obviously more face-to-face as we come out of lockdown. Things around helping people with their jobs and skills, so to do resumes, networking, etc., interview letters. We've run cultural awareness training where we've invited not-for-profit groups along and community people as well to find out more about the Binjarab Noongar area that we live in, and the wonderful culture of the local people. And in future we're going to do some adult literacy and numeracy courses at the libraries. I think called Switched On Seniors, where seniors actually teach other seniors how to navigate smartphones and things like that, set up email addresses and so on. Cultural ambassadors. So this was a wonderful project where the city partnered with Multicultural Futures, and 5 people came forward from the community from different backgrounds, some African, Indonesian, Chinese, Indian, and I think also from Malaysia. Raquel is the lady on the left who I previously worked with when she was doing a work placement. And so they were identified as having strong existing networks and knowledge bases within their different cultural groups and families and communities. And so they were tasked with delivering accurate information around COVID initially to their respective communities and to link vulnerable people to relevant services, teach resilience, increase awareness of safe and culturally appropriate support, and promote stories of hope and recovery. So each of them were trained in areas of mental health, addiction, so drug and alcohol, suicide and other areas relevant during the crisis, particularly. And then they've since run their own little workshops with their communities as well, and that's a continuing thing. I hope to get some more funding as well to continue it next year. Community connections. Excuse me. Sorry. So as you know, the statistics are that 1 in 3 people, particularly in the city, maybe not so much in the country, don't know their neighbours and consequently don't trust them, and then they feel less safe as well. So we've been working on a thing called Let's Get Neighbourly. So we partnered with Neighbourhood Connect, a not-for-profit organisation, to help upskill just people from neighbourhoods to become connectors. It could be just in their street or their neighbourhood or beyond. So they can then get the confidence to run a little street party or barbecue. Or something as simple as just having a cup of tea with a neighbour next door and just starting to build that community. They can access vouchers up to $50 towards the cost of their activity, which they can use for anything except alcohol. And so that's an opportunity for them to contribute and feel like they belong in their neighbourhood and community. Also, residence groups have been really important. We managed to do lots of phone conversations with key community champions, but also the residence groups, and make sure they were resourced. So we used them to distribute resources to their communities as well. And just as we came out of lockdown, just to encourage people to start to connect again, we organised an event around Mental Health Week called Spring into Life. I was involved with this at my patch, which is Lakeland's shopping centre and library. And we made it a really fun event. And the idea was that people could come along and have a go at different things that really contribute to their health, like Tai Chi, yoga, did Zumba and things like that. There was music, entertainment, there was story dogs, lots of storytelling activities. And it was a real feel-good event, and people, just to give them a bit of confidence to come out again and be out in the community. So this was a really, really simple idea that came from community, which was a little friendly neighbourhood support postcard. And you could pop it in your neighbour's letterbox saying, giving you, obviously, g'day, I'm so-and-so, this is about where I live, my phone number is, and if you want help with things, just feel like you can reach out. And myself, Tom and Pippa, we individually posted about 10,000 of these ourselves throughout the community because it was during the COVID lockdown. We managed to recruit some church groups, church congregations and community organisations as well to do the work for us. And also, the city set up a call centre to phone everybody over the age of 65 that was on the electoral roll locally. And that's continued as well with a service called Ring Ring, which is run by a group called Befriend. Again, this, although the postcards probably aren't quite relevant, we've still got loads left, so if we do have to go into lockdown again, we can send some more out. One of the things I learned, actually, is there was a community choir which had become dormant because of COVID. They lost their director as well. And everybody was a really bit nervous about wanting to come back together, and they missed that social connection, but they weren't quite sure how to start the group up again. So we sort of were proactive in bringing all the members of the choir back together. But then we asked them what were they prepared to contribute to make sure the choir can keep going and doesn't fall down again. So we partnered with a group called Songfest, a local not-for-profit. And then we brought them back to sing, which is what they wanted to do. And then we managed to, they've now formed a committee and they've got a grant, so they're up and running. So I'd encourage you to sort of, if there's groups that you see, oh, I wonder why they're not active again, have a conversation with them, see if you can help, but then obviously let them go off and running themselves when they get up and running. That's me, and over to Sheila.
Thank you. Okay, good, thank you. Which one? This one?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, hello, folks. Are you still awake? There's a spelling error on my slides, so the first person to spot it gets a chocolate frog. As somebody said in the introduction, I'm terribly old, and I'm just about to turn 85, so I thought, what am I going to do for my future? And I thought, I need to start up an organization which is going to help me when I get old. So we had a thing called compassionate communities, and it was thought up by the world, and that we would all look after each other. And I thought this was an awfully good idea, but as I'm dyslexic and ADH, etc., I couldn't spell it, and I certainly didn't know what it meant. So we needed a more friendly name for it, hence the Local Friends. Now, Mandurah, as you all know, is a magnificent place to live, and the government all wants us to age in place, which is a wonderful thing, and we all want to do this. We don't want to lose our communities. We want to stay involved. However, if you live alone, the days can be long and dreary. And all the sociologists are saying that the latest epidemic is not COVID, it is loneliness. And as have you noticed it? You've noticed. Good. Now I blame Nick for that, actually, because I have corrected it in my lot, but he hasn't corrected it in his. Anyway, so there we are. I was a few years ago. I was walking my dog, and I saw one lonely emu in a paddock, and I thought, my God, this could be me. And so I wrote a poem, and I'm not going to bore you with it just now because I only have 7 minutes to talk. So anyway, David Smeaton was my partner and friend, and he breathed palliative care, and he was trying to get compassionate communities going. And unfortunately, I'm very angry about this, he died before he got anything going, which was very, very sad. So we were at his funeral, and it was just before COVID. And the mayor was there, and our mayor is very young and very sort of can-do-ish. And I was saying, this is something that David wanted. Can we get it going? And there were 400 people at the funeral, and they all looked as though they were going to help. And the mayor said, Mandurah can do this. I'll give you some officers to help. And one of them was Nick. Okay, so our first get-together, you know, while COVID was striking, we got all the stuff that you have to do, you know, all the incident reports and the disability policies and the equal opportunity and the harassment and all that. And I've got a big file, which I hope I'm never going to use, but it's all done, and it was done while the lockdown was there. So we had our first get together, and we found it, incidentally, we found it extremely easy to get volunteers. So, you know, if people think it's a good idea, they come in droves, which is good. These are some of our volunteers, and I was told to tell you a little story. The very first person I went to see, one of the doctors who we went to see, phoned up and said, Sheila, I know you haven't started yet, but please, could you go and see Mary? And so, yes, I would go and see Mary. I had my police clearance, I had my insurance and all that stuff that you've got to have, flu jabs and what have you. And I went to see Mary, and I said, oh, Mary. And she was not as old as I was, of course. She looked at me and she said, oh, I thought they would send somebody younger. So that was a good start. So I said to her, what do you like to do? Do you like to play Scrabble? No. Do you like to look at old photographs? No. Do you like to sing a song? Because I've got a blind lady I go to, and she's an ex-musician, and we sing together, and she loves it. No, she didn't want to do that. And so I was at my wit's end, and I said, what would you like to do? And she said, well, I like to walk. And I said, oh, great, where do you walk? Oh, she said, I don't walk. Oh, no, I couldn't, she was in a tiny little unit. I couldn't leave here. And I said, well, there's a park down the way, and it's got baby ducklings. Would you like to go and walk with me? Oh, yes, she said. I would very much like to go and walk. And now she walks all over the place. The first time I saw her walking to the local shopping center, I phoned up the manager at her village and I said, look out, please tell me when she gets back, because I think I've opened a Pandora's box. Anyway, a couple of days down the road, he said, I don't know what you've done to Mary, but she's a different personality, and could you go and see number 24? We have four-footed friends also. I'd been in Poops. I was one of the instigators of Poops. So my dog is a beautiful collie dog, and she's very gentle. And she goes and has her ears scratched by people that have loneliness leading to depression. So we've got two of them. They have to be very, very carefully managed, the dogs, or selected, because they've got to be quiet and like having their ears scratched. And we tell them, no food, please. Now, what do I do with this thing? You see, I'm an ADHD. So we started very small, and then we got bigger, and now we've been going for, our launch was in April. This is 1st of June. So it wasn't very long ago, but we are gradually getting bigger, despite the fact that we wanted to keep it very small until we found out what we were doing. Okay, now we've got a whole lot of stuff that we had printed. We got a very nice little grant from Mandurah, so we printed logbooks and we printed handbooks, because we didn't want our home visiting volunteers to go in with a file and clipboards and things like that. So we wanted the blokes to have it in their pocket and the girls to have it in their handbags. We also made doctors' things, so we gave these to doctors for social prescribing. So after they've given you your medication for your blister packs and your Webster things, then they tear this off, and this is social prescribing. Okay, I'm nearly finished. There's our mayor, good looking, isn't he? And he said at David's funeral, Mandurah can do this. And then he said to me, if I have to do this in local government, I have to set up a new department, completely new department. It's going to take 2 years, and it's going to take hundreds of thousands of dollars. You people can do it on Tuesday week. So this is the doctor's pad. Would you like somebody local to come and visit in your home? And I thank you very much for coming and to hear about our new venture. Thank you. We set up a newsletter because we realized that our old friends couldn't do anything digital. So we made a big one that had big print that they could actually read, and they didn't need a computer.